Hey guys, so I've got a pretty interesting video idea today. So I'm going to go over 7 major stages of how good you can be and how to progress between each of them. So yeah, also I'm going to be playing just regular free-to-play games in the background. So the first stage, which is actually where like the vast majority of people are, is in just learn the basics. That was interesting firecracker positioning. But so most people, they don't even know the very absolute basics of how to play the game yet. They're still trying to make things work that shouldn't work. If you're a mid-ladder menace, you don't know the basics yet because they're trying to make things work that have no reason to work. They're just trying to play cards that have overleveled interactions and watch them work that way. So learning the basics that you really need to know are you need to be playing things at 10 elixir, unless of course you got to defend, but on top of playing things at 10 elixir, you need to be, you can't just expect things to work. That is one of the biggest things that a lot of people have trouble with, and it's something that I recommend that people learn very early on. It's not on you to make the win, because like they're also a human being. They're also trying to make the win happen. If you try to make the win happen, really all you're doing is just giving them an opportunity to make the win happen. When they try to win, they're giving you an opportunity to win. So it's really counterintuitive the way that Clash Royale works, but actually, oftentimes, just being patient is much better than being aggressive. The way that you get past this first level of gameplay is just playing, like, a lot. Of course, experience matters. At this low level of gaming, really what you need is, you need a max level deck, of course, you need a max level deck for really anything. That was a terrible boss bandit. You need a max level deck, and you need, well, at least medium-high levels. But you also need to just play the game a lot. And as you play the game, as you get more experience, then you will slowly start to understand the way that things are meant to be played. That's a terrible boss bandit ability too, dang. I'm playing garbage today. So the next point of the game's like skill progression is this. You need to learn to have good micro. So what is micro? Micro is how you place your cards. So this is a part of the game that most people there's a lot of places to get stuck. This is one of the biggest ones. A lot of people get stuck on micro, where like you see this guy, he placed his cannon. That is not the correct cannon placement. You shouldn't play your cannon there unless you're doing anti-fireball on the opposite lane. But he knows I don't have fireball, and I'm not even going for the opposite lane. So clearly he doesn't know how to place his cannon correctly. But you really need to get these good micro interactions absolutely perfectly down before you can really start getting really good at Clash Royale. So my actual recommendation to get out of this second stage where you need to get good micro is this. Learn to play 2.6 Hog Rider. Right? So I know that 2.6 is kind of toxic, right? It's no skill, you don't have to think at all, but that's the reason why I'm telling you to play it. Because as a 2.6 Hog player, you don't have to think about the overarching game at all. There is no thinking. The only thing you need is micro. If you have good micro, you're good at 2.6 Hog. Because in terms of game plan, your entire game plan is just all in, all the time. Hog the river, hog the river, hog the river. Wait for it to work, hog the river. So you, as a 2.6 player, you don't have to do any macro thinking, so you're entirely freed up to think about placing your cards to the best possible placements. So I would recommend you, well, I mean, if you don't want to play 2.6 Hog, you could just play any other cycle deck, really. But I really strongly recommend that you play some sort of fast cycle deck, like at least 2 1-elixir cards. And then that will teach you good micro. Of course, it's going to suck for a long time. Oh, we got 3 champions, dang. But it's going to suck for a long time, but over time, you will get better at your placements, and you will start to learn how to play micro. You need to know micro for every card in the game, but, whoa, this guy's got a level 8 Princess Tower? Dang. Okay. Well, so yeah, that's the second level. You need to know how to place your cards. And once you know how to place your cards, then things will start to get more interesting. The next stage of the game is, I would call it level 3. This is where you know how to play micro now. What you need is macro. Macro is the opposite of micro. Micro is how you place your cards, and macro is which cards you choose to place. You notice sometimes in my games here, I play like something that is unintuitive. Like I know I have a better counter in hand, but I would rather play something else and save my Inferno Tower for something else, or my Skarmy for something else, or something like that. So good macro is understanding the game plan, understanding what to play and when and why. And the deck I recommend that you play to get good macro is Lava Hound. And I know that's going to sound really crazy because Lava Hound and 2.6 are completely opposite decks, but that's the point. With Lava Hound, since Lava Hound is so different than 2.6, in 2.6, all you need is good placements. You don't need to think about macro at all, because all you need is just play it at the river and it'll work. So as long as you can defend, then you're fine. But with Lava Hound, it's the utter opposite. Instead of needing good macro now, what you need is, instead of good micro now, all you need is good macro. Because have you seen B-Rad playing Lava Hound with his feet? You need micro matters so little to Lava Hound that you can literally play with your toes and have enough accuracy with your card placements. All you need is to keep track of their air counters and know what they have in hand at any given time and how to pressure them. So Lava Hound and 2.6 are kind of fundamental opposites in that sense. And I think that if you learn to master both Lava Hound and 2.6, then you'll be a pretty good start to getting to a higher level of the game. Now, if you're poor, like me, and you spend $0 on this children's video game, then you're going to have to go about getting good a little bit differently. You're probably going to not be maxing out 2 decks just for learning only 2 concepts. So probably what you're going to end up doing is you're going to max out 1 deck that has both cycle and beatdown aspects. And actually, interestingly enough, the deck I recommend for this is Royal Giant. Royal Giant is a very interesting deck type, specifically Fast Cycle Royal Giant, by the way. But Fast Cycle Royal Giant, it is a fast cycle deck, but it also has heavy beatdown aspects too. So if you learn how to play Royal Giant correctly, you're going to learn both good micro and good macro at the same time. So that would be how I recommend you get out of the first, second, and third stages of the game. So these first, second, and third stages of the game, by the way, is like 99.999% of players. Not very many people at all have made it out of the these first 3 stages. Like, if you have the first 3 stages and like somewhere between B and S tier deck, you can probably be like minimum ultimate champion, 9,000 trophies, or at tops, you could be top 10,000 players in the world. Like, just out of those 3 points alone, just knowing how and when to play your cards. That's it. But there's still 4 more levels to go. So yeah, the next up is counting their cycle. So, well, there's kind of a twofer. You have counting their cycle and counting their elixir. But I'm saying counting their cycle first because, in my personal opinion, it's much easier to count their cards than counting their elixir. So, when you're counting cycle, well, so think about it. They only have 8 cards in their deck, right? So, when you're counting their cycle, you're basically counting what they have in hand at any given... That doesn't get a hit? Dang. That's supposed to get a hit normally. But when you're counting their cycle, you're knowing what cards they have in hand at any time. And because, well, so it's very useful knowing what they have in hand at any time, especially good for log bait. So if you're trying to learn to count their cycle, I advise that you max out log bait, because log bait is probably the best deck to learn to count cycle with. Because, I mean, log bait, you don't really need good macro, you don't really need good micro, all you need is just make sure that they don't have a small spell in hand and it'll work out. So, counting cycle is considerably a step up from learning micro and macro, because learning micro, that's just simple memorization. Macro is pretty much also simple memorization. Like, as a 2.6 hog player, I memorize that sometimes I need to, in certain matchups, I need to just sit back and fireball cycle instead of trying to get a hog rider through. So, macro is kind of memorization, though of course you do need to know like their cycle roughly to have perfect macro. So of course it's not all just memorization for macro, but micro and macro are mostly memorization. Cycle is not memorization at all. Cycle is always something that's going to change game to game. So you really have to step up your gameplay in order to get good at macro. I mean, it's counting their cycle. Hope the delivery will splash here. Very nice. I'm going to log this so I can get my boss bandit to survive. I've just been completely not talking about the gameplay at all, by the way, but I'm sure you guys understand by now. I've been talking about the same plays with this deck for so long that everything I'm playing should be pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, for counting cycle, I recommend that you max out classic log bait, like OG log bait. Well, clone. But, so, yeah. So, play 2.6 to learn how to place learn 2.6 to learn how to play micro, learn Lava Hound to learn how to play macro, or you can learn RG to learn both at once if you're poor. Learn Log Bait to learn how to play cycle. Well, to learn how to play around their cycle. Then the next point that I have for you is elixir counting. Now, elixir counting is a step even beyond just counting their cycle, because elixir counting is guaranteed to be different in every stage of every game. So you're always going to have to deal with a lot of stuff going on with elixir counting. So yeah, elixir counting takes a long time usually to get good at. But there are a couple ways of going about counting elixir. Some people actually just memorize, like they'll go, if this guy plays a giant at the back, when the giant reaches the river, they will have X elixir. And then you can just memorize how much elixir they will have in any situation. So there is like a memorize-y bit aspect to counting elixir, but if you really want to be good at counting elixir, you're pretty much just going to have to try hard it. Oh, right. Actually, going back to cycle for a second. So I didn't actually mention this, but so here's how I would go about learning to count cycle, right? So in order to get good micro, just play the game. Good basics, play the game. Good macro, play the game. In order to learn how to count their cycle, that's not something you can really do by just playing the game a lot. I mean, of course, it'll happen eventually, but if you want to get good cycle and in a reasonable time frame, you're going to need to do it in some active way other than just playing the game. So the way that I would recommend that you go about this is I recommend that you intentionally count their cycle for only a couple games, or like after you've played a game, go back and count their cycle, because counting cycle is really tough actually. Like if you're trying to directly keep track of every card in their hand at once, that's going to be really tough. So what I recommend is go back afterwards and keep track of their cycle, or in the game, keep track of the cycle of only one or two of their cards. So like as a log bait player, keep track of only their log. If as a hog player, keep track of only their building. And then, so what you need to memorize is after they played it, they need to play 4 cards before they get back to it, 3 if they have a champion down, but I'll not talk about that for this video. So they need to play 4 cards before they're back to something. One big tip I have for counting cycle is once you're well enough versed in counting individual cards and you're starting to feel ready for the whole deck, think of this. They have 8 cards in their deck, 4 cards in their hand. So half of their deck is always in their hand and half of their deck is always out of their hand. Come on with the Princess of the River. Ugh. But, so at any given time, there's always going to be half of their deck in hand and half of their deck out of hand. And you know that whatever's out of hand are the 4 most recent cards they played. So really, you don't actually have to like count every card that they have. What you really need is just to memorize, not memorize, what you really need is just to realize, these are the last 4 cards they played. And as long as you can keep track of the last 4 cards they played, you know what they don't have in hand. And you know what and if you know what they don't have in hand, you know what they do have in hand. Because, of course, everything that isn't in the don't have, they do have. And everything that isn't in the do have, they don't have. I think that makes sense. So the way I go about counting cycle is kind of crazy, actually. Instead of counting specifically what they have in hand, I try to figure out their deck, and then I count what they don't have in hand instead. I hate this guy with his princesses. Yeesh. Okay. Well, so that is how I would go about counting cycle. So you learn to count cycle by counting a couple cards at once, maybe just one, or going back and trying to count multiple at once. And then once you've learned to count multiple at once, then you can try keeping track of their entire deck by keeping track of what they do and do not have in hand over time. So by simply memorizing what 4 cards they played last, you know which cards they don't have in hand. Back to elixir then. So there is no individual deck that you can learn to teach you to count elixir. No deck in the game will teach you that. This is something that you definitely need to do consciously. It is something that's probably going to take a moment, but you'll get better at it over time. So the thing with counting elixir is that you're not going to be counting elixir consciously forever. It's just not going to work out. If you try to count elixir consciously forever, you're going to be too focused on counting elixir and not have enough brain power left over for like the rest of the intricacies of the game. So, like, you're going to need to know good micro already. Like, you should know micro by the back of your hand by this point, like the back of your hand by this point, so that you can have enough brain power left over to think about the cycle, think about their elixir. But when you're counting elixir, again, there's still more stuff that you have to do after counting elixir. So you don't want to have counting elixir take up your entire brain power. You want it to someday become instinctual. So what I recommend for learning to count elixir is think less in how much elixir exactly do they have, and think more about, was that a positive trade? Was that a negative trade? Am I up? Am I down? I kind of hate this starting hand. I have no tanks, and he's going all in first play. That's fun. I'm going to Hog Rider to stall a little bit. If he lets that go, it gets a hit too. It gets no hits because over-leveled. Fun. I might actually just be straight up dead here because he went all in when I... Okay, I'm alive. I'm alive. Just barely. So he's got... Well, yeah. So that was stressful. Sorry. I completely stopped explaining there. But when you're counting elixir, you should think less about exactly how much elixir they have in hand, and more along the lines of, are we equal? So right now, I'm pretty sure that I'm either down a couple or equal. So I'm not going to play aggressive. Yeah, you see there, I was down by 1 elixir. So you don't have to count perfect elixir counting yet. At this stage of the game, even just counting elixir a little bit is more than enough. Oh, I'm probably going to lose my tower here. Oh, this really sucks. Yeah, and for a reason like that. Because his stuff is better than my stuff, so he can defend afterwards, but I can't defend afterwards. Alright, so once you have count elixir, count cycle, good micro, and good macro, then you've learned 4 major overarching like characteristics of how to play the game. So by this point, you're better than like at least 99% of the players, because you remember I said even just good micro and macro is nearly enough to get you top 10,000 in the world. So as long as you have those basics down, you're better than the vast majority of people. But yeah. So once you know how to count cycle and elixir, you should be pretty much just a top player by this point. So the next thing to do after you've learned to count cycle and counting elixir is just polish. So by this point, you don't need to really do that much more learning. By this point, what's left for you is get better at what you already know. Because what you already know is pretty much enough. You know the major overarching points of the game, so as long as you just get better at those things, you will get better at the game. So I have this stage labeled as polish. I'm probably going to lose this game. That kind of sucks. You just set up a push and... Oh, never mind. He's garbage at the game. I actually have a chance now. Or Evo Snowball can bail him out. That's fine, too. Alright. So, in this stage of the game, when you're just polishing, you're learning to... So before, you're counting their cycle, you're pretty sure what they have in hand. You're counting the elixir, you're pretty sure that you're up. You're pretty sure that you're down. You're pretty sure you know what you should play at any time, and you're pretty sure the exact placement that you should play it to. So this polishing step is going from pretty sure to knowing. This is where it's not, I'm pretty sure he's going to zap my Inferno Tower. It's, I know he has zap in hand. I know he's going to zap my Inferno Tower. I'm going to predict it. So you notice there I use the word predict. Polishing is the final step before you start getting into the predicting territory. This is where you know pretty much every aspect that's going on in the game at once. So whatever could happen, you know about it. Nothing gets past you. And since you know what could happen at any time, you're much more likely to guess right when you start predicting. So this is the time I would advise that you really start looking for predictions. Oh, that sucks for this guy. I hate to see it. He got starting handed. I lightninged when he didn't have anything good in hand. And there wasn't really a good way for him to cycle to a good cycle because it was the beginning of the game. Yeesh. But, so once... The reason why I'm putting predicting so late is because, of course, I'm sure that you will hit predictions on bad players with even just the basics. You don't even need level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to before you can start predicting. But really, you shouldn't be going for those predictions until you're at this stage of the game. You should have everything absolutely down, nailed, before you start going for these kinds of wild plays. I'm gonna let that Tesla go, because if I just hog into it, I'm just giving it value. If I leave it alone right now, it's a -1 trade. Alright, so, yeah, that's my take on the 7 stages of Clash Royale. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to know, you need to get the basics down. I'm just gonna review. So you need to get the basics down, you need to, understand, like, I'm hoping he's not gonna pre-log this. And I totally messed my log. Well, that's on me. That gets a hit through the Skarmy. Yikes. Okay. I did not need the delivery either. Dang. I'm playing kind of bad today. I lost a game and I'm making so many mistakes. Dang. Well, so yeah. You need to play the game when at the beginning. You need to get a max level deck and stop thinking like a mid-ladder player. I'm just sure that's going to be hard for a lot of people. But the second part is you need to, after you have a max level deck and you're not thinking like a mid-ladder menace anymore, what you need to do is you need to start focusing on learning the perfect placements for every card. And then after you've got perfect placements, mostly down, then you can move on to learning when to play those cards. Once you know when to play a card and how to play that card, then you're pretty good at the game right now. But once you know both when and how to play a card, then you can start thinking about how to count their cycle. When you can count their cycle, like, counting cycle and counting elixir is just stepping stones to learning how to predict them. Because once you can predict people, they're really screwed. Pretty much predicting is just manifesting how much better you are than they are, really. So, yeah. Once again, I am reiterating, good macro. Once you have good macro and good micro, you start working on counting cycle. You count cycle by just counting a couple cards at first, typically just the one. I started with just the one. And over time, you get better at counting until you can count many cards at once, or instead of counting many cards at once, counting more specifically what they don't have in hand. This guy's playing log bait. I'm gonna firecracker the river here, because his Duchess is out of ammo. That should have killed his firecracker, that's annoying. I scar me like this. I think that activates my King Tower. Okay, yeah. I haven't played Skarmy against a firecracker in forever. I mean, like, try to activate King Tower off of it. So yeah, get good macro, get good micro, count elixir, count cycle. For counting elixir, it's just practice. Like, I said, like, there's no deck that you can play, really, to just perfectly learn to count elixir. You just gotta play the game a whole lot. You can think in the back of your mind about whether that was a positive trade, whether it was a negative trade. You can do quick math, become Asian. But really, you just gotta play the game a whole lot, and eventually you'll start to get it. I'm seeing a walking lightning on my screen. I want to lightning it. There it is. That lightning is an instant positive trade. I spent 6 for his, a lot. I spent 6 for his a lot. Does he have hog? I feel like he has hog. Or is this another guy? The decks all blend together. Oh right, this was log bait. Mega Knight Firecracker, which... I suppose we'll finish off the review. So, I talked about counting cycle, counting elixir. You get counting elixir, counting cycle... Yes, you get counting elixir by just playing the game, like, an absurd amount. Like, you know no-lifing? That's you. When you're learning to count cycle, you are no-lifing. And then, polish. Polish, once again, no life, but even harder. And then, finally, predict. This is when you finally know what they have in hand. And since you know what they have in hand, you know how to predict them. You know what they could play at any given time, and you know why they would want to play it. So you take advantage of that. I've finished explaining now, so I'm pretty much just going to focus on this game to end off the video. So, yeah. He's got a very interesting deck. He's got Mega Knight Boss Bandit, Witch, Log Bait. It's like he's playing one of those old Mega Knight bait spam decks, but very mid-ladder-fied. I'm expecting Skellies. No Skellies? Okay. Witch. Kill it. Fire. That's game over. Easy W. All right. So yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, I did this. All right. How about this? So you heard here I explained 7 stages of how to get better at the game. So there was learn the basics, get good micro, macro, cycle, elixir, polish, and then finally at the very end, then you can start predicting people. So I assume that you guys are like spread out across these stages. So please comment down below where you are and which ones you want to see me explain, because I'm sure that I can explain more in depth. I could dedicate an entire video to how to improve through any of these stages. And honestly, I imagine that most people are just in learning the basics still. So yeah, see you guys.